There is no guarantee for success, but there are ways to get closer to it when you do the right things. Who you surround yourself with is just as important as what you do. Finding the right people, the right classes, the right activities, and taking the right tests are all decisions that shape your future. Find out more today on Destination University with Dr. Cynthia Colon. Dr. Colon and her guests will give you the tips you need, whether you're a student, parent, or educator. Now, here is your host, Dr. Cynthia Colon.
You're listening to Destination University, a podcast for college-bound teens and the parents, mentors, and educators who support them. If that is you, you are exactly where you're supposed to be. Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Dr. Cynthia Colon, TEDx speaker, college admission strategist, and author of the book, Be Committed, Get Admitted. Welcome to Destination University. We help high school families successfully navigate the college admission process by helping students create an action plan, become interesting applicants, and write compelling essays that increase acceptance letters. As a former admission officer at Vassar College and an elite private school counselor in Los Angeles, I have coached, mentored, guided, and worked directly with over 10,000 students. I know what it takes to get admitted to top 100 colleges. As my gift to you, I'm revealing the exact admission committee process we used at Vassar. It's all in my new guide, 4 questions admission officers ask when deciding who to admit or reject. You can get that at drcynthiacolon.com/admit. In the guide, I share the 4 questions I used in the 12 minutes I had to review an entire application. I give you the order I read the application, what I was looking for, what I highlighted and took note of. If you've ever wondered what admission officers are looking for and how decisions are made, well, today is your lucky day. Again, go to drcynthiacolon.com/admit. Okay, let's get to today's episode. Okay, great. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome. We are in our week 2 or module 2 of Dream College Academy. And those of you who are part of Dream College Academy, you can watch all of this in module 2. Those of you who are joining us for the first time, welcome. Please type into the chat where you're tuning in from and what grade level you are for our guests. You're in for a special treat today. We have 2 of my favorite people in the industry for sure. And I'm going to have them start by just sharing a little bit about who they are and how they got started in this, because actually both of them are working at the institutions they actually went to. I just put that together. So Claudia, why don't you kick us off with a little bit of your story?
Baron's in the meeting? Someone.
And just a reminder, folks can mute themselves.
This is that webinar I was talking about. If you want to just sit and watch it for 30 minutes, I know you've been running around.
To do that other webinar.
Okay, this is a different topic, but okay.
I don't know.
Guys, make sure you've muted yourself.
On the stairs. I had to go to 2 different Home Depots because they didn't have my work.
All right, everyone, make sure you mute yourself. Okay.
All right, so I'm Claudia Marroquin, and I'm the Senior Vice President and Dean of Admissions and Student Aid at Bowdoin College. And as Cynthia mentioned, I'm a graduate of Bowdoin. Bowdoin is located in Brunswick, Maine. But the big piece about my story is I'm originally from Southern California. I'm a first-generation college student. And when I was looking at colleges, I only looked at colleges on the East Coast. And Cynthia and I had many chances to talk and to learn more about how I got to Bowdoin, but I worked with a community-based organization since at the time that I was applying, I really didn't have access to the opportunity to visit colleges. The pandemic has made some things much more accessible with webinars like this for folks to learn. So given that I was a first-gen student, I had told my counselor, I'm really interested in living and studying in a part of the country that's really different than Los Angeles. My mom was supportive of me going wherever it is that I wanted to for college. And that really had me concentrating on small liberal arts colleges, something that I was not very familiar with at the start of my college search. But as a first gen student, really found that it was going to be a type of education that was going to be really supportive. And I was also someone who loved just exploring and taking a bunch of different classes. So I ended up at Bowdoin after visiting on a fly-in program. Cynthia knows this, but my mom, as soon as I got back from this fly-in, she was like, great, you chose the place that was the furthest from Los Angeles. That was not my intent in my college search, but it was just what felt right. And I majored in art history, minored in government and legal studies, worked in Boston for a few years, and then made my way back to Bowdoin. And I've been here now for, I'll be actually starting my 15th year at the college. And I've done everything from working on fly-in programs. I travel internationally to recruit students as well. And now that I'm the dean and a senior vice president, I really do work on issues with the president of the college and just looking at a number of different angles on how we support students, but also some of the critical issues taking place in higher ed and affecting schools like mine. So a little overview there. So Cynthia, back to you.
Awesome. That's great. I love her story. You can catch her podcast. I'll point it out to you at the end here. Tim, please share a little bit about yourself and how you got started, and that's your Trojan.
Sure. Yeah. Hello, everybody. I'm Tim Brunold. I am at the University of Southern California in Los Angeles, USC. I am USC's Chief Admission Officer, the Dean of Admission, and I have spent pretty much my entire career at USC. I did my undergraduate studies at the university. I am a native Southern Californian, product of public high schools in the state of California. And in fact, for me, it was surprising to end up at a private university. Although my family members had the privilege of going to college, no one had been to a private university in my family. And so we were definitely low income, and concerns about paying for college, even, almost 40 years ago when I was going to college, were real then. And I know they're certainly real now. I went to USC. I had a fantastic time. Like so many folks in the admission profession, I didn't think that I was going to be someone working in admission for my whole career. But I have basically done every job in the admission office. When I was an undergraduate, I worked in the admission office as an intern, and that's sort of how I got started. But as USC's chief admission officer, my job is to really be responsible for what we're doing every year in recruiting and enrolling students. And so it's great to be here, happy to share some perspective, and I'm really excited for all of you who are about ready to start this college journey.
Most of our students who come today are class of 2025, but certainly there are younger folks. But you see they're from across the country. And one of the questions I get often is, how does this process work? And is there a real person who actually does read? Do they really read all those applications? We know that the number of applications has gone up over the years. So for each of you, you have a different pool of applicants, but share a bit, what you can, about how this really works and sort of demystify the process. So we'll start with Tim this time.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, to give you some perspective, my institution, USC, this year received about 82,000 first-year applications. So that was a lot. We also have about 11,000 transfer applications. So altogether, we needed to get through more than 90,000 applications. And I always like to say at USC, we do this the old-fashioned way, and that is we read every application. A human being reads every application. Most applications are read by more than one person. And, generally the way we do the work is not uncommon. We divide our work geographically. And all that means is that someone has a territory that is based on a geography. At USC, often that's a state, but sometimes it might be a city or a part of a state. And basically that person, any applications that come from high schools in that area, they get read first by that individual. At USC, one person doesn't make the admission decision, but usually that admission officer who covers your high school or your area is going to be the first one who picks up your application. They're going to be the one probably who's primarily advocating for your application through the process.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and I would say it's not too dissimilar at Bowdoin. We obviously have a different volume than USC. We're a small liberal arts college. So in this last cycle, we had just over 13,000 applications, and we have a staff of 14. And similarly, we have geographic territories. We really have this be a personal process, and I'm sure we'll get a little bit more into the parts of the application, but I'm reading with our territory managers. They understand the context of what's happening in different high schools in different states. And that's really important because, you know, coming out of the pandemic, since the pandemic, we really try to understand the opportunities available to a student, not only in their high schools, but also the geographic regions. And that's where this territory management piece really comes into play. But as Tim mentioned, one person is not the only one to make the decision. We've changed our model a little bit, but 2 people are reading an application at once so that, again, there's discussion happening about the applicant from the very beginning. They make recommendations. Students who are going to be offered admission to the college usually will have a team of anywhere from 4 to 7 people who will ultimately be reviewing and making kind of that final decision of whether the student is going to be admitted. So we really do think of our process as one where it's intentional, it's personal, and it's one that involves many decision makers at the table, because it is an invitation into our community, and we really pride ourselves in that.
Absolutely. You know, one of the things that is great that both of you are here is, you know, you have, even though the volume is different, as you said, Claudia, but the selectivity is there for Bowdoin, for USC. And so students and parents always want to know sort of, you know, what makes a student or an applicant sort of rise to the top? What does a competitive applicant look like, right? There's the difference between being eligible and being competitive. So just, can you share from your perspective of each of your institutions, what does that look like? Claudia, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I always talk about that in, there's 2 components to really stand out. One, as you mentioned, you know, everyone is eligible. Most of our applicants could do the work at Bowdoin. And that's really where it's hard for students, you know, and if you end up participating in case study programs where you read sample applications, it's really hard because you recognize there's strengths that every person brings. But as we're looking at the academic part of the application, we are looking for students who have maximized opportunities that they've had available to them. There's, yes, the minimum level of, sure, students could do that work, but given that students are going to need to be intentional in our classrooms, both at Bowdoin and USC, it's going to be tough in the classroom, and we want to see that students have pushed themselves appropriately, but that they are really preparing themselves for the academic experience. We're also a community and a classroom experience where discussion is central. The largest classes that we have on our campus might have a maximum of 50 students, but the average class size is closer to 10. So discussion is a big piece of that. And we're looking again for students who might thrive in that type of environment. But again, looking at what's been available to a student, the choices they've made, and that they've prepared themselves academically for what they're going to encounter on our campus. The other piece is really, again, where this art of admissions happens, and it's really subjective, where as a community, we are looking for a whole bunch of type of people that we're going to be inviting. So we're looking for students who want to give of themselves, that are active in their communities. And I'm very intentional with that word choice. It's not just activities that you're doing at your high school, but how you're thinking about your place in the larger world. The things that fascinate a student, that they get really excited about, that they shared in their applications. And I will say that the cases that I remember the most are the students who either through their essays, the way they write about their activities, the way that others write about them, where we really feel like we've understood who the person is, the character, the values that this young person would bring to our campus. Those are the things that really make a student unique and stand out, because the activities that a student might do that are available to them as a high schooler, there are a lot of commonalities, but it's again more of how a student thinks about their place in the world and what they value that really starts to set itself apart. And that really comes through again in all of those parts of the application that are subjective that you have a lot of control over.
Love it. Love all of that. Oh my gosh, good. Tim, share with us about USC.
Well, I'll just say ditto. Can we leave it at that? No, I think the way that Claudia spoke about it is very much the way that we think about it at USC. I do want to point out, and this might sound a little negative at first, but stick with me. I don't think there is such a thing as a universal applicant that will get into every college or university, no questions asked. The truth is there is a great diversity of choices among American colleges and universities, not to mention colleges and universities outside the US. So, avoid this thinking of like, oh, if I can just put together this kind of application, I'll get admitted everywhere. I mean, maybe you will, but let's take it back to USC. Yes, of course, we are looking for students who are solid academically, are strong academically, who do well in the classroom. That doesn't mean that you have to be a straight A student to get in. And honestly, I don't know any college or university that's ever going to tell you that academics don't matter. Of course they matter. But in a lot of ways, it's the rest of the application that the admission committee is most interested in. Your grades are there and we can look at them and the classes you've taken, and those are pretty easy to analyze. But it's the other parts of the application where you can really stand out. And so we're looking for students who are motivated, who understand why they want to go to college, understand why they want to go to USC. USC doesn't even necessarily have to be their first choice, but we're very interested in students who already have an idea about what they want to do during college. It's not to say that you can't be undecided. It's not to say that you can't still be figuring it out. We absolutely understand that 17, 18-year-olds, this is a very interesting time in your lives. But we really do expect that the students who want to come to USC are somebody who've really given some thought to these things and are able to articulate them. And so for us, the other parts of the application, the stuff that you produce, the writing samples, the answers to our questions, the kinds of things that you've been involved in inside and outside of the classroom. These are the things that I think we spend the most of our time on when we're reading applications, because these are the things that really differentiate one student from another.
Awesome. Tim, can you just comment on the, it's a very specific question, but I think Claudia said they have 2 readers. And in the UC system, they hire an army. So is it one, how many readers will read an application at USC?
Well, we have 50 people who read applications and 50 full-time admission officer people who work only at USC. We also then employ about 20 people who help us seasonally. And these are folks, almost all of them are former admission officers. So these are people who have done this work. At USC, it really just does depend. It depends on what someone's major is. And by that, I mean, if somebody has applied to our art school, it's going to be read a couple of times by admission officers in the university's Office of Admission, but then there are going to be folks in our art school who are looking at the portfolio, who are thinking about it. So at USC in the process, it can be anywhere from probably 2 to 5 or 6 people who will pick up that application, who will consider the application at different points in time. But to be clear, at USC, all decisions at the undergraduate level are made in the Office of Admission. So even though there might be folks in our cinema school, in our dramatic arts school, kind of giving us advice, the final decision, again, is going to be made by the admission office. And so even though it is a bit of a decentralized process with lots of different people being involved, at some point, everything comes back together and we kind of compare notes and make some final decisions.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, good. I wanted everybody to hear that. All right, well, go ahead and type your questions into the chat and I will facilitate them. The first question is not an uncommon question, but it's about community service. Do acts of community service make a difference in the application? And I wonder if you can be specific about this, because I think one of the things I talk about is that everybody feels like community service is the way in. And I often will say, we can't have a whole freshman class of do-gooders, altruistic, community service. So shed light on what that means, what that looks like. Claudia, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, this is the most common answer admissions officers give. It depends. And it really depends on the quality of and the intent behind this act of service. There's always this conversation around, is it better to have done a little bit of everything, to have spread yourself out, to really being specific? And the same kind of applies to community service. We want to see that students are doing something because it's meaningful and it matters to them. Having, if you do an hour of service once and slap it on your college application, great, you did something good, and hopefully it was because you really wanted to help out in that moment. But is that 1 hour of community service that you did in your junior year really going to be something that tells us more about who you are, what your intents are, what you value, what your areas of interest are? Probably not. And I would say that that's true of any activity that a student is engaging in. It's about the quality of it and what it's actually meant in your life. And if there's, again, ways that we're connecting the dots across the board. There's, of course, as Cynthia said, we want good people, and we want people that care about others. And that doesn't always have to be reflected in community service. At Bowdoin, we have a big value that we talk about, which is the common good. That yes, it can manifest itself in students volunteering, but it's also about those small acts of kindness, of just looking out for others, and the empathy that can come through when you notice that someone is in distress, and maybe it's a friend or a family member, and you act out of kindness and because it's the right thing to do. That also matters. So again, this doing good doesn't always have to translate into volunteering. And it doesn't mean that we're always looking for students who have those community service hours, because again, we're looking for students who are interested in a variety of things and who've demonstrated that they also really care about the things that they've been involved in.
Awesome. That's great. Tim, anything that you would add sort of along the lines of co-curricular activities?
Again, I've seen a lot of the different themes that are coming up in the chat here, and many of them are sort of different takes on the same thing. I mean, I want to make it clear that there is no secret or even public list of activities that we give more points to. We don't even use a point system at USC, by the way, but it's not like we say, oh, if you're in debate, that's worth more than being in the Spanish club. The truth for us is we're not looking for anything specific or particular. What we're looking to do is understand what each and every applicant has chosen to engage in. So I tell people, I mean, remember, the people reading your applications don't know you. And in fact, the only way typically that we know you is through what you tell us about yourself. So, if every activity that you've put down is a service activity, great. Logically, I'm probably going to assume that that's how you spend most of your time. Is that good? Is that bad? I don't know, because everything's in the context of everything else. So it's very hard to give you black and white answers to these kinds of questions, because the fact is, it really does depend. I will tell you, at USC, we are interested in students who want to be involved in their community, whether that's their local community, whether that's an online community, whether that's a community of like-minded people. We're interested in students who are going to be engaged in things besides just their studies. But it's hard to be much more certain than that. But again, make it clear. I don't really know of too many colleges, if there are any, who are going to sit there and add it up and say you have one of these and one of those. I think it's more about how are you choosing to project yourself in your application. I have known students who have specifically edited things out of their activities because they don't think those things are impressive. And I would tell you that that's the wrong way to think about this. If something's important to you, if it's engaging to you, if it's something you care about, put it down. Plain and simple.
Absolutely. Yes.
I just add one little comment there. I love that Tim said, that students are sometimes thinking about how they're going to best impress admissions officers and sometimes through their activity lists. I want to make sure to also recognize, there are activities and things that occupy students' time that is valuable and should make it onto that activity list. Sometimes students will overlook work or family responsibilities because they don't think it's one of these impressive, catchy name things. Sometimes students are like, oh, I have to have done research or be the captain of a sports team or have won some award to be impressive. But having significant responsibilities that are adult-like are also things that students should mention. So I always tell students, think about how you're spending your time outside of studying in class. What are those meaningful activities? And as Tim said, don't necessarily be thinking about how you're going to impress us, but really just be sure that you're capturing what's occupying your time and the things that you've chosen to spend your time on, whether it's chosen or because that's just the reality of your life and you have to participate in a job, for example.
Awesome. Great. You can see in the chat, there's a lot of questions about what I would kind of just say, they're asking sort of how do we craft a class is essentially what they're asking, and what does that look like? But as we're running out of time here, and everyone who's on, I will stay on. I'll answer any and all questions that didn't get answered. Not to worry, I'll stay on for several minutes afterwards. But I do want to give each of you an opportunity to just share, either through the lens of what does that mean to craft a class, but like how is USC unique or different? What's your 1 minute spiel? And also would love, we want to learn about Bowdoin as well. Someone's asking about Bowdoin as well. So go ahead, give your best plug, Tim.
Yeah, real quick though, I'll take us off track. Someone was asking about, do SATs matter to USC? And then someone said, yes, they matter. Well, let me just remind everyone that we are SAT optional. We are test optional at USC. And in fact, in this year's entering class, only 40% of our students sent us test scores in the admission process. Can test scores matter? I suppose they can. We consider them if you submit them, but it is also the case that if you don't submit them, we don't bother to wonder why. We just move on and say, okay, then we just don't have test scores to consider. So don't become obsessed about that. I want you to understand that this is more than just USC. If a college says something is optional, whether it's a test that's optional, whether it's an essay that's optional, please take us at our word. If I really want something, I'm going to tell you it's required. It isn't a passion test. It isn't a trick to say, let's see if they actually answer this question. At least at my institution, we're pretty forthright. If we tell you we don't want something and it's required, then it's required. Otherwise, you can choose. USC, what to say about USC, what to say about any of our institutions. I will tell you that one of the things I love about USC is that it is incredibly diverse. And when I talk about diversity, I'm not simply talking about diversity of race, ethnicity, or culture, although certainly we are those things, but I'm talking about diversity in all its forms. Geographic diversity. We are the University of Southern California. Most of our students are not from Southern California. In fact, most of our students aren't even from California. Diversity of academics. We have a top flight engineering school right next to the top cinema school in the world. We have artists, we have biologists, we have economists, we have people who want to go into broadcasting. There is that incredible diversity. We have incredible diversity socioeconomically. 1 out of 4 of our students is the first generation in their family to go to college. We have people at both ends of that spectrum. We have incredible privilege. We have folks who have come from incredibly challenged backgrounds, and we have a lot of people in the middle. I think all of this diversity really adds to what we offer, because studies have shown, reality has shown, common sense has shown that better products come from diverse groups of people. If you come to USC, chances are there are going to be people here who you are just like you, who you feel very comfortable with. And there's going to be a lot of people, a lot more people who are different from you. And I challenge students to think about getting outside of your comfort zone a little bit when you go to college, because this is how we learn. And, you know, we can talk about all the academics, we can talk about all that stuff, but I've got to tell you, many research universities start to sound the same, because in order to be a world-class research university, you've got to offer a lot of the same things. So, you know, I'll let you come and discover that, but think about the diversity. I think that's really important to me. I think that's really what adds value of a USC education.
I agree. Claudia, share about Bowdoin. I love it.
Yes. So, I mean, I think I always start by talking about Bowdoin as a place of surprises for a lot of folks. I know it's a place that some may never have heard of before and often mispronounce the name, but being in Maine, I think there's a lot of assumptions people make, and we're a place that I think really defies that. And as Tim mentioned, I wholeheartedly agree that diversity makes everyone better. And that's one of our key goals too. We enroll over 70% of our students who come from outside of New England. Only 9% are from the state of Maine. So we really do have a campus that represents all swaths of the country and the world. But I think the other things that I really pride myself on from the Bowdoin experience is that it is a place that really cares about the individual. We are a small campus. We have 2,000 students. So you're seeing different ends of the spectrum here between Bowdoin and USC. And we're a place where, you know, students do not fall through the cracks. They really get to be who they are, explore broadly. We really encourage students to take risks. But when we think about our location too, I was mentioning in the chat to a couple of folks who are familiar with Bowdoin, is that, you know, when students come to our campus, they're looking to take advantage of what our academic experience is and what our residential experience offers, but they really also want to take advantage of this special place that Maine is. 15 minutes from our campus, people again sometimes misunderstand liberal arts colleges, thinking all we do are humanities things or the arts. But 15 minutes from our campus, we have a research facility dedicated to the study of the environment. The amount of research taking place regarding climate change and the way that our students really engage in research really closely with faculty members, and then really get to, again, connect the dots across interests that they have outside of the classroom, and to really think about their education as not just one that's happening in the classroom, but as educating the whole person is something really central to our mission. So I always describe Bowdoin as that place where people will know your name. You won't know everyone, but it's a place of really making intentional connections, not only with subject matter, but with people as well.
Awesome. Great, great, great. You guys, those of you who've been following me for a while, you know, I went to USC and I worked at Vassar College. Very similar. Vassar is similar to a place like Bowdoin where everybody does, you know, you do know everybody's name. So lovely to have you both. Everyone, I'm going to stick on. I will answer some more questions, not to worry. Either or both of you you're welcome to stay, but I know you have busy schedules and I want to respect that. So everyone, let's blow it up in the chat. Let's thank our guests for all that they did, and they took some time carved time out just for you today. So we appreciate that. So thank you. Yes. All right. So you two, I will make sure that Stephanie gets you the list of the names and emails of those who are here today. So you'll get that. Okay.
Great. Good luck, everyone.
Good luck, everybody. Yep. See ya.
Thank you so much. Here's the truth. For nearly 30 years, I have worked at elite private colleges and/or private high schools. I know what well-resourced families do to ensure college success, and I can tell you, if your child is enrolled at a public or religious high school, chances are she or he is already 5 steps behind. However, today is your lucky day. To get you ahead of your private school peers, I have a gift for you. I'm revealing the exact admission committee process we used at Vassar. It's all in my new guide, 4 questions admission officers ask when deciding who to admit or reject. You can go to drcynthiacolon.com/admit to get your copy. I share the 4 questions I used in the 12 minutes I had to review the entire application. If you've ever wondered what admission officers are looking for and how decisions are actually made, you're not alone. Take action now to get 5 steps ahead and begin increasing those acceptance letters. Again, that's Dr. Cynthia Colon, drcynthiacolon.com/admit. That is all I have for you today, my friends. Thank you for tuning in to Destination University. I'm Dr. Cynthia Colon. If this episode has in any way helped, fueled, or inspired you, please share this episode with 3 people in the next 30 minutes. You can subscribe to Destination University wherever you get your podcast. And while you're there, leave us a review. It sure does help a lot. By subscribing and reviewing, you help to grow the community of informed families across the nation. And if you haven't binge listened to our previous seasons, do it. With each episode, you'll learn a new tip, trick, or strategy for success. Start with episode 1, the one word every parent should remove. You'll learn my mom's secret to ensuring college success for her daughters. And once again, if you found value today, please share this episode with 3 families in the next 30 minutes. I'll be sure to see you next week, same time, same place. Until then, wherever you are, may you have a happy and sunny day. Bye for now.
Thank you so much for listening this week to Destination University. Be sure to join Dr. Cynthia Colon again and get one step closer to your success.